It's part 2, y'all. Hello, everyone. Cece and I are here to welcome you. Alright, Cece doesn't want to welcome you, but I want to welcome you to part 2 of the vampire reading vlog. Heck yeah, got 3 more books to go. I'm very excited. Also, stick around to the end of the video where I will be announcing the winner of my first ever giveaway. I'll see you then. Alright, it is Monday. The date is October 11th, and I have 1 week left of paternity leave, so that's frightening. I'm about 13 or 14% of the way through Dead Until Dark by Charlaine Harris, and that's going surprisingly well. It is different than what I expected, but I really actually am enjoying it for a couple of reasons. One, I think that Sookie, which kind of a strange name, but especially because the other character, the vampire's name is Bill. I just think it's so funny that they're so vastly different of names. But it's going well because I think Sookie is a much more interesting protagonist than what I expected. Like, I kind of thought this was going to be like Twilight for adults, I guess. Just because of kind of like what I'd heard about the show and also just kind of the cover as well. But I should not have judged a book by its cover because I think Sookie is really interesting. One, because of her abilities, but also just because she's more competent and more like her own person than like Bella or Grace from Crave ever were. She knows what she wants out of people and out of herself, I guess, in a lot of ways. And she's just confident in a way that I appreciate. Like with the other two, they're very much passive narrators, like passive protagonists. But with her, she's very much like in on the action. She's doing things, and I appreciate that a lot, that she's very much an active protagonist. That being said, some of the writing is making me laugh. Like, there's this one part with the vampire Bill where, like, Sookie's attacked, and she, like, comes to, and he's holding her, and, like, she says that Bill is, like, licking the blood off of her forehead. And when I read that part, I just busted out laughing. I thought it was so funny. But other than that, it's going well, so I'm excited to see where it goes from here. I don't think it'll be my favorite book by any means of the challenge, but I'm liking it more than I expected to, so that's good. Okay, so I've also started listening to Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice, and that's going well too. The thing that I really like about that one is that it's all vampire, because with Crave, Dracula, and even Bloodsucker City, like, the vampire aspect of it wasn't really introduced until later on in the book, or with Dracula in particular, like, I just wanted more of Dracula. But with this, like, Interview with the Vampire is literally, like, the story of a vampire, and you know he's a vampire literally from, like, the first page, so it's very central to the story, and I appreciate that. But I'll check in with you guys later once I've gotten a little bit further into those two, but that's where I'm at. I'm really excited about both of those books. Hey guys, I am here in my backyard. The date is October 12th, and thank God Texas is finally cooling down, because like half the days in October have had like 90-degree weather, which is just insane. So it's like in the low 70s. It was actually like in the 50s or 60s this morning, but now it's like late afternoon and it's cooled down significantly this week, so it's in the 70s. Sorry if the wind is a little bit loud, but I wanted to film outside for a little bit just for a change of scenery, and also because I want to do some reading out here while I have the chance. But yeah, so I am about halfway through Dead Until Dark by Charlaine Harris, and I am having a pretty good time with it, actually, a better time than I anticipated, because, I don't know, I guess I just didn't really know a lot about it going into it. I had no idea that it's like a mystery. I just didn't know that. I should have done more research, to be honest with you guys, but I had no idea. So yeah, there's like a mystery at the heart of this that I think is pretty compelling, and then on top of that, I just really appreciate the way that it's a lot more down to earth, I guess, than other vampire books that I've read recently. I guess I like the fact that Sookie acts like a normal person, like she acts pretty rationally. She's not like swooning all the time over these vampires, but she acts normal for the most part. I mean, not normal, but more normal than other characters. So I like that, and it makes me enjoy her as a character more and just the story more. So I'm enjoying where it's at. Like I said, I'm about halfway through, so I'm gonna do some reading right now. I'm also gonna try this thing. I've tried it before, but I don't really remember how I feel about it. It's Bud Light Seltzer Pumpkin Spice. So I've got my book, I've got my seltzer, and it is absolutely disgusting. Wow. That's worse than I remember. Okay, but I'm gonna do some reading at the very least, and hopefully have a good time with that. So here goes nothing. Her brother's kind of a jerk. I also find it so interesting the way that people think that, like, Sookie's just, like, really simple-minded and not very smart, and you just kind of get the other half of her perspective on it, and I find that really entertaining. Okay, so I just finished chapter 5, which that is one thing that bothers me. I'm one of those people who just can't stand really long chapters because I'm like 150 pages in, and it's like just now finishing chapter 5. I'm a big fan of like short chapters. You give me short chapters, I can read all day, but long chapters, there's something about them that just like discourages me from continuing to read at like a consistent pace. I don't know what it is, but I can't do it. But yeah, this book is still going well. I do think her brother's being a real jerk, but Sookie is really good of a character. I like Bill pretty well too. At this point, I really have no idea who's committing the murders, because, okay, so just a little bit about the story. Bill, the vampire, shows up in this town, and he's kind of just like trying to settle. In this world, vampires are like legally recognized, and he just wants to settle down in this town for some reason. And so he's trying to, but shortly after he arrives, like people start dying in really brutal ways, like they're beat up and they have fang marks on them and things like that. And so there's certainly a certain level of suspicion that it's him, but obviously it's not going to be him because that'd be too obvious. There have been other vampires introduced as well. I'm not sure if it's them. I feel honestly like it's somebody else, like a human, who's trying to frame the vampires because it's easy to frame a vampire now that they're out and about and considered dangerous. I don't really know who it is. I guess we'll see. I still have half the book left. I just wish the chapters were shorter. Oh, still gross, but whatever. Interview with the Vampire is going well too. I'm about 4.5, 5 hours into that one. So like maybe a quarter of the way through, I think. And I like it. I really like the perspective, like I said. I also just like the fact that you really get like the whole picture of the vampire, because with a lot of these, with Crave and with Interview, actually with all of the books that I've read so far, like you don't get the process of like becoming a vampire. It's just the vampire characters are already vampires when they enter the story. So I really like the fact that you're kind of getting the whole story for this vampire, where you start from like when he was a human, and then you go through his transformation and all that jazz, and just to him adjusting to the life of being a vampire. I think that's really interesting. So I have high hopes for both of these books, actually. So far, part 2 of this vlog is going very well. That being said, I still have to start Empire of the Vampire by Jake Kristoff, which I have high hopes for that one as well. But yeah, things are going well. I'll check in a little bit. I'm gonna keep drinking this, I guess. I don't know why. Just because it's here. Yuck. It's so early. It's actually not, but I'm trying to make myself get up at like 6 because I go back to work next week, and when you work at Starbucks, you have to be up stupid early, and it's been a while since I got up stupid early, so I'm easing my way into it. But it's super early, and we're out of coffee, which is not a pleasant combination, so I am on my way to Starbucks to get coffee. I'm tired. Good morning and welcome to October 13th. That's good. That's good coffee. So, last night I stayed up and I finished Dead Until Dark by Charlene Harris, which means I'm 4 books into this 6-book challenge. Hot dog. Hot dog, hot diggity dog. My son is watching Mickey Mouse Clubhouse in the other room, and I have a feeling I'm going to be saying hot dog all day. So, that's cool. But yeah, so I finished Dead Until Dark, and it was pretty good. Okay, so it was not my favorite of the challenge so far, but it was better than I expected. Around the halfway point, a little bit after, it kind of got to the stuff that I thought it was going to get to earlier on, and that is the smoochy, kissy, kissy stuff. It seemed like kind of like that romance kind of vibe just from the cover, and the show that I had understood it to be. Yeah, so, I mean, it turned into a little bit of a romance. But aside from all of the sexual content, this book was nice. It was actually pretty nice to read. It was a good time. It was a fun time. It was a very easy read, and that's why I finished it so quickly, just because it was addicting, honestly, and it was engaging. It wasn't very long either, so that's nice. So, the things I liked. I really liked Sookie Stackhouse as a character. She is by no means a damsel in distress, which is something that I find to be just so refreshing, especially for this genre. she was very competent, to the point that, like, in the final, like, climax of the story, Bill the vampire isn't even there. Like, he's not there to defend her. It's her against the antagonist of the story, which I found to be super great. Same thing goes for Bloodsucker City, because that was the case in that book as well. So I really enjoyed that aspect of both of them, where it's no damsel in distress by any means. It's a very competent female protagonist who is more than capable of defending herself. I thought that was really nice. So the whole vampire aspect of this book was also something that I really enjoyed. Just the way that vampires interact with society. It's almost like a form of bigotry, I guess, and like, not racism, speciesism? I don't know, something like that, where it's like people have certain, stereotypes and prejudices against vampires who are now just a normal part of society. And so just kind of seeing the way that people have different opinions about the vampires, how people treat the vampires, despite the fact that vampires are, just a part of society, they're seen as people. It was a really interesting dynamic to the story, so I enjoyed that. As far as, like, the negatives go, like, yeah, there was a certain degree of ridiculousness, I guess, to it. It almost felt like kind of like a spoof at sometimes, but I thought that was kind of nice. More just, like, the relationship kind of bothered me near the second half of the story, just because it seemed to, like, be progressing really slowly and naturally in the first half, and then the second half of the story, the relationship just, like, shot off into the distance and, like, became something else entirely, which, whatever, that's fine. I mean, I guess that's gonna happen. But that bothered me a little bit. And then I did feel that the story lost a little bit of its momentum during kind of, like, the second half. I actually enjoyed the first half of the story more, despite the fact that the payoff at the end was good. Like, the third quarter of the book really kind of dragged for me, just when she's kind of trying to decide how she feels about Bill the Vampire, whether or not the relationship is worth it, all that jazz. That kind of dragged for me, but the rest of it was surprisingly good. So actually, I do think that I will pick up the second book. I don't know if I'll continue after that, but I do want to see where the author chooses to take it from here, because I also really enjoyed the mystery aspect of it. I had no idea that it was like a mystery, and I found that really engaging and refreshing as well. So for Dead Until Dark, I'm going to go with, oh man, I can't decide between a 3.5 and a 4. For right now, I'm going to go on the lighter side and give it a 3.5. But by the end of this, I may honestly bump it up to a 4, dependent upon how pleasantly it sticks in my memory. So we're going to go with 3.5 stars for Dead Until Dark. For Bill the Vampire, I did like certain qualities about him that weren't really present in other vampire stories that I read. Like, just the aspect of, like, vampires' blood being, like, good for your health and, like, having restorative properties. I thought that was kind of an interesting angle. And he seemed like more human, I guess, than the other vampires, which is good and isn't good. It makes him less formidable, I guess, as a vampire, and more just seeming like a human who has to drink blood, I guess. No, actually, he did some damage in the first half of the book for sure. So for him, I think he's less formidable and, like, dangerous than, like, the vampires of Steelgate, maybe, from Bloodsucker City, but definitely more so than Jackson. For now, with Bill the Vampire, I can't get over that name. For Bill the Vampire, I'm gonna go with 6 out of 10 fangs for now. And yeah, I'm just gonna settle with 6 out of 10 fangs. That may change later on in the series, but for book 1, I would have liked to seen a little bit more from him. He definitely showed himself to be a strong individual in the first half of the story, but in the second half, he just really, like I said, he wasn't really very involved. So, which is fine. That's fine. I enjoyed Sookie's perspective. So, Dead Until Dark was a surprising success. I enjoyed it, and I'm excited to continue on with this challenge. So I am going to be focusing primarily on Interview with the Vampire right now. I'm listening to that. I may switch over to the physical book. That way I can have the physical book for that going, and then start the audiobook for Empire of the Vampire, but I'm not sure. I may just focus on one and, like, give myself a little bit of a break from all the vampire-ness. I may decide to just keep listening to Interview with the Vampire and, like, physically read something different. We'll see, but either way, I've got time. Like I said, it's October 13th, and I only have 2 books left. That being said, I don't think they're both the longest, but I do know Empire of the Vampire is the longest one. by far, that I'll be reading this challenge, but Interview with the Vampire is not too long, so I think it should be good. My goal is to have all of the books finished by the, 23rd? So I've got, 10 days. I think I'll be okay. If it's not done by the 23rd, it's fine. I just have to have it ready by the end of the month. So, yeah. Awesome. Well, that's my update for now. I will check in with you guys probably tomorrow. I don't think I'll probably have much to say about Interview with the Vampire later today, just because I haven't gotten very far and I don't see myself getting too far, but I will check in soon, and I'm going to enjoy this coffee. Y'all have a good day. We have a slight problem, and that is that Hulu now has all of Castle on its streaming service, and I love that show so much, so I'm going to try to keep reading, even though all I want to do is watch Hulu. We'll see how that goes. I don't know how to make avocado toast that looks pretty, but I know how to make avocado toast that tastes daggum delicious. Look at this. It looks ugly, but it's gonna be good. Little man gets avocado toast too. This is actually more fun, if you ask me. Hey guys, it is now October 14th. It's Thursday, and I am officially halfway through Season 1 of Castle. So, okay, in my defense, I don't watch a lot of TV, so when I do watch TV, I watch it, hard, you know? I don't get into shows very easily, and so when there's a show that, gets my attention, it gets my attention and does not let go. And so I'm enjoying it, you know, I deserve to watch a little bit of TV. I've been reading a lot, you know, and so I'm just enjoying that. But I am still working my way through Interview with the Vampire, in my defense. But remember earlier when I said that I don't like it when books have, really long chapters, and I was complaining about Dead Until Dark and the fact that I was 150 pages in and only on chapter 6? Ha! Well, wouldn't you know it, I am 6 hours into Interview with the Vampire, and I'm still in chapter 1, so that's cool. Interview with the Vampire is going okay. No, it's going well. It's just a little bit strange at times, and it's not particularly fast-paced by any means. It might be slower than Dracula, honestly, because with Dracula, at the very beginning, you start off with, just the creepiness of it, and, you know, Dracula kind of holding this person captive and things like that, and Dracula being, super weird. But with this, there's certainly, a certain level of, ambiance and atmosphere to the story. It's very gloomy, but yeah, not a lot has happened, exactly. I mean, the main character's been turned into a vampire, and now they've turned, a child into a vampire, which is weird, because, she's eternally in a child's body, but she's progressing mentally into, womanhood and stuff, and so she behaves like a woman, and it's just a little bit weird. And so I don't know how they handle that in the movie, but yeah, so that's it. For now, I will check up with you guys later. This weekend's pretty packed. We're planning on going to Mainstay Farms, which is a pumpkin patch, tomorrow, which is Friday, and then Saturday I have my graduation party because I just graduated with my bachelor's degree, so that's going to be fun. And then Sunday I'm just going to absorb every little moment with my family I can. So I'm not sure how much I'll film over the next couple of days, but I will check in with you guys when I can. We're at the movie theaters right now, about to go see Halloween Kills, which I have seen mixed reviews for, so we'll see how it goes. But I'm waiting right now on a hot dog and pretzel bites. So, yeah, I'll let you guys know how I feel about the movie. Hopefully it'll be scarier than these daggum books. Okay, so it is now Friday, October 15th. I was about to say August. Where am I? October 15th. I've got some orange juice, which is nice. No pulp, ever. And I'm here to talk about Interview with the Vampire, which I'm done with. So that's pretty cool. I have some mixed emotions, to be honest. With this book, it's definitely more thematically heavy than I had anticipated. So I knew it was going to be kind of like... I mean, I say that. Maybe I didn't. I don't know what I really expected. But it was definitely more serious than I thought it was going to be. It was very dramatic. It was very moody, things like that. But beyond that, it poses a lot of, questions. It has you questioning, okay, what is good? What is evil? And, just the predisposition of, what we're inclined to do versus what we have to do. Just in regard to like a vampire's nature and things like that. Like the main character, Louis, he doesn't want to kill people, but it's in his nature to kill people. And so there's definitely like a juxtaposition between that and like just human nature and how we're inclined towards like, you know, selfishness and things like that. But in addition to that, there's also some questions about, you know, like immortality, like whether or not that is something that anybody should actually want. Also, it talks about like how the way we perceive people visually impacts the way that we think about them and what we believe them to be capable of, and it impacts, you know, like our whole thought processes and things like that. And it asks a lot of questions like that, which is fine, but I felt a little bit bogged down by all of that because it's very much an existential journey. I mean, the book definitely like goes places because they start out in like Louisiana, I think, and they end up going all over the place to Europe, and I think they go to Egypt and France and yada yada yada, all these different places. But at the same time, like on page, not a lot of stuff happens. Like it can really boil down to like 3 or 4 major events, I think, and the rest is very much like the main character really battling with himself on like what he's okay with, what he's not okay with, things like that. And while I definitely enjoyed some aspects of that, it felt a bit repetitive eventually. And so I kind of was bored at times just because I'm like, okay, let's get to the point. But at the same time, like there was definitely a lot of quality here because like I said, I really liked the decisions that the author made in regard to like, I guess the reader's perspective. Like, it's very clear throughout the story that the vampire is trying to impart some wisdom to the person who is interviewing him. And at the end, you're just like, did this guy actually learn anything or no? And did we learn anything? Which is cool, but, you know, at the same time, am I reading a vampire book to gain wisdom or to have a good time? That's the question. Now, all that being said, I think it is impressive what Anne Rice was able to do with this book because she takes a really fantastical character like vampires and she turns them into something that is very human and very relatable and that we can all see ourselves a little bit in. And so while I may not have gotten the experience that I expected out of this book, I have to recognize that it did something pretty impressive. So for Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice, I think I'm going to go with 4 stars, and that's a pretty confident 4, because while I maybe didn't enjoy every aspect of the journey that I went on with this book, just because it wasn't what I expected, I really should respect it for what it did do, and what it did do was really quite something. So 4 stars for Interview with the Vampire. For the vampires of this novel, Louis himself really isn't very impressive. I feel like he's more of just like the scope in which we as the readers perceive the story. The other vampires really were pretty interesting, like Lestat, which I think the rest of the series, which there are a lot of books, primarily follows Lestat, which makes sense because he's a lot more interesting. And then Armand was pretty cool too. Even, you know, Claudia, the little girl, I thought she was more interesting than, you know, the main character. And so for the vampires as a whole, I'm going to go with a 7 because I thought they were really compelling and really interesting. But for the main character, I would go with less. But I'm going to rate them together because this really was a whole vampire story that follows a lot of characters rather than just the main character. So I'm going to go with a 7 for the vampires of Interview with the Vampire. And now that means I have 16 days left in the month, and I only have 1 book left to read. So that's pretty cool. Empire of the Vampire is all that's left, and we'll see how it goes from here. Check in a bit. Guys, it is Monday night. The date is October 18th. Today was my first day back at work after my wonderful paternity leave, and it was a good day, actually. I had a good day, but I'm getting the idea that maybe I won't have as much time to read as I had hoped, just because it's going to take me a little while to get back in the swing of things. So I am still like 3 hours into Empire of the Vampire, and I'm enjoying it quite a bit. It's different than what I expected. It actually kind of reminds me of Interview with the Vampire because, I mean, the main character is kind of being interviewed and having to tell his whole story of, like, how he became a vampire and all that jazz. But I'm enjoying that quite a bit, but it's pretty long, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to finish it this week. But as long as I have it finished by, like, mid next week, so I have time to finish editing the video, I should be good to go. But yeah, that's all for now. I hope you guys are having a really great week. I know I had a pretty good start to my week. I'm glad to be getting in a nice routine with work again, and it was nice to see all my coworkers and employees again. But I'm tired because I'm not used to having to work a whole day again and take care of the kids when I get home. So I'm going to go to bed. Y'all have a good night. See you soon. All right. I'm here today to announce that I have made a terrible mistake. And that is that I just really set myself up for getting burnt out on vampire books here. Because 6 vampire books in a row is a lot of vampire books. And it's starting to suck. Haha, get it? No, it really is. Like, okay, so I'm a little over halfway done with Empire of the Vampire by J. Kristoff. And the problem is, I feel like if I was reading this any other month, any other time, I would be enjoying it quite a bit. Probably, maybe not. But the fact that this is the 6th vampire book that I've read this month is making me not enjoy this book at all. I'm tired of vampires, I need a break, and so lesson learned for the next time I do a challenge like this, I'm doing like 5 or less, maybe 4. 4 seems like a good number, but 6 is too many. So, my thoughts on Empire of the Vampire so far, I like it sometimes. I think the vampires are cool because they're not, like, straightforward vampires. There's a lot of different, like, families of vampires that, dependent upon which vampire family you are from, impacts the abilities that you as a person or as a vampire would have. So I think that that's interesting, and I also think that the choice of narrator and his background is kind of interesting as well. But I don't like the way the story is told. So it kind of reminds me of Interview with the Vampire in that it's somebody telling their story of like how they became a vampire or whatever and all that jazz. But it's told non-linearly. Is that a word? Not in a linear fashion, I guess. And so it jumps around a lot, which is kind of hard to keep track of, just like what's going on, who is even there. Like there's a lot of characters and I'm just not following, I guess, who they are as much as I wish I was. And it's just kind of all over the place, honestly. And so I'm enjoying some aspects of it, but I'm just having a really hard time staying committed to it, which is frustrating because I really wanted to love this book. But what are you going to do? I mean, I'm just going to push through. It's Friday, October 22nd now, and I would like to ideally finish this book over the weekend, but we'll see how that goes. I'm on my lunch break right now, and funny story, I go to the bookstore by my work so often that I know that I can drive to the bookstore and have 8 minutes to look around and drive back with like a couple of minutes to spare. And so, yeah, I am on my lunch. I just got back and I went to Half Price Books and I bought some things. Here are those things. So first I found a copy of Wrath, which is the last book in the Faithful and the Fallen series by John Gwynne. I actually haven't finished Malice. I have started it, and it's one I need to come back to. I had just been reading a lot of fantasy at the time, and I needed a break, so I put it down. But I really want to continue that because I loved The Shadow of the Gods when I read it earlier this year. So definitely want to continue that. When I found it for like $9, I had to get it because I rarely see these books in bookstores. And then I found something super interesting that I'm very excited about because a lot of my favorite booktubers have been reading this book. It's Empire in Black and Gold by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Yeah, I've just been seeing this book all over BookTube lately. And when I saw it there, I had to get it. I could not say no. And then I found this book. I've been eyeballing it for a while. The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. I don't know how to say that. I've been buying way too many books this month, but I had gift cards, so it's cool. But that's it for now. I'm going to try to listen to this audiobook of Empire of the Vampire a little bit more. Try to push through. I'm ready to listen to something else, though, non-vampire. I'm ready for just, like, your classic fantasy stuff. Or maybe, like, a contemporary. Something just, like, totally normal would be nice, too. So I'm going to push through. I'm going to get this done, and then we're going to see where the cards have fallen at the end. I did it! All 6 vampire books are finished. Woo! Very exciting. I don't think I'll ever read a vampire book again, just to be honest with you, because I'm vampired out. Let's talk Empire the Vampire, and then we'll get into my final rankings. I'm going to grab this pillow because I need to hold it for comfort, because I didn't like Empire the Vampire, and it hurts that I didn't, because I really wanted to. But yeah, it was not for me. Let's talk about the things I didn't like. Well, we'll start with the positives. I'll start with what I did like. Okay, so I liked... Hang on. I guess I liked, like, the concept. Okay, the concept was cool. So, Empire the Vampire follows Gabriel, and he is this legendary warrior who is a pale blood. And what a pale blood is they are half human, half vampire, and they are tasked with fighting vampires because they want to redeem their souls, and the only way to do that is by destroying the evil parts of them, which are the vampires. And so the Pale Bloods work to stop the vampires from basically becoming this empire of unstoppableness in this world of darkness. And the world was kind of cool too. It was definitely a bit gritty. And like the vampires or Pale Bloods' abilities were pretty interesting. My issues, however, are plentiful. I didn't like the writing, first off. There's something about J. Kristoff's prose that just didn't work for me. Part of that was just like how immature and like crass it was, to be honest. Like all of the characters have the tendency to say the phrase, and I'm gonna censor myself because I don't curse. They say "F me in the face," like that's like practically their catchphrase, and that just was like a huge turnoff for me. Like I don't know, it removed me from the story because the setting feels very like almost not like medieval, but like, you know, different. And then all of a sudden they're saying "F me in the face," and it's like, okay, who is this? Is this like a 20-something from 2020, or is it this pale blood from the past or whatever? And so it took me out of my experience, and it was just kind of dumb. Like I thought it was really dumb that was just like a phrase, and like sometimes something really bad would happen, and the chapter would end with "F me in the face," and then the chapter would end, and I'd be like, oh, okay. So that didn't work for me. I also just wasn't a fan of the way the story was told. So in some ways, it feels almost like a series of short stories about Gabriel and like his adventures and his journey, because there's a lot of journeying in the book, and like it time hops a lot. So it's him telling his story to this vampire who is like taking an account of his tale and writing it down or whatever. So like I said earlier, in a way that reminds me of Interview with the Vampire, but with Interview with the Vampire, it was very linear. You know, you start from the beginning when he gets turned into a vampire, and you go throughout his story to present day. And with this one, it was more, okay, let me tell you this story, and then I'm going to hop over here and tell you this story, and then I'm going to hop over here and tell you this story, which, for one thing, made it difficult for me to get attached to the story itself, because it didn't feel like there was a lot of, like, tension being built. It was more like tiny climax and conclusion, tiny climax and conclusion, and then the ending. And then on top of that, I wasn't, like, thrilled. I wasn't, like, enthralled by the characters. Like, Gabriel himself, I didn't like him very much, but I at least kind of got more of his journey. But with the other ones, like, I had a hard time even remembering who all the characters were because it hopped around so much. And, yeah, it didn't really work for me. So those are my thoughts. I could get more into it, but I really don't want to because it just was a letdown, to be honest. It was a letdown. So for Empire with the Vampire, rating-wise, I'm going to go ahead and give it a 2.5. Maybe a 3 on a good day, but I'm really frustrated because I had really high hopes for this one. So yeah, I'm going to go with the 2.5 for Empire the Vampire. And for Gabriel, I did think he was a pretty... I mean, he's not technically fully vampire, but I think he was very dangerous. And he was very intense and gritty and kind of wild. And so I would say, other than Dracula, he was probably the most intense vampire of you know, this journey that I have concluded, thankfully. So for Gabriel, I'm going to go ahead and give him 8. I'm going to give him 8 out of 10 fangs. So those are my thoughts on Empire the Vampire. And now we come to the conclusion, where I rank all of these. So I'm just going to go with this. I'm not writing it down. I'm just going to go through it. Okay, so for the books, in last place, we have Crave by Tracy Wolff, which gets... I'm lowering my rating to a 1.5 out of 5 because I did not like this book at all, really. So it doesn't deserve that, too. In 5th place, we have Empire of the Vampire. It just didn't work for me. I had really high hopes and it let me down, and it gets a 2.5, which is still a whole star above Crave. So there's that. Good for Empire of the Vampire. In fourth place, I'm going to go ahead and go with Dead Until Dark by Charlaine Harris, and that is going to get a 3.5 star. I actually did enjoy this one quite a bit, and I do see myself returning to this series, so that's exciting. And then in third place, we have Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. I enjoyed this one pretty well. I think upon reflection, I'm going to lower this one to 3.5 stars as well, because it was good, but I think I didn't actually enjoy myself as much as I wanted to, so I'm going to go ahead and give that 3.5 stars as well. In second place, we're going to go with Dracula. I'm going to go ahead and move my rating up to a 3.5 from the 3 stars that I gave it, or maybe I did give it 3.5 originally, I don't remember. But yeah, I think this book has so much merit, and it's made such an impact that it really deserves recognition and praise. And then in first place, we have Bloodsucker City by Jim Towns, which was truly a dark horse. I did not see this coming, but this book was amazing, and it gets first place in regard to my star rating. Okay, now it's time for the Fang Scale, in which I rank the vampires from the books. Here we go. In sixth place, last place, we have Jackson Vega from Crave. He gets 3 out of 10 fangs, because he was not that great. In fifth place, we have Bill the Vampire from Dead Until Dark. He gets 6 out of 10 fangs. He was not bad, but he wasn't great. In fourth place, I'm going to go with Lestat and Louis, or Lewis, or whatever his name is, from Interview with the Vampire. They get a 7 out of 10. In third place, I'm going with the Wardens of Steelgate Prison from Bloodsucker City. They get 7 out of 10 fangs as well. In second place, we have Gabriel from Empire of the Vampire. He gets 8 out of 10 fangs. And of course, in first place, being crowned the king of all vampires, is Dracula. 10 out of 10 fangs. No surprise there, in my opinion. And that is it. That is my ranking. That is my vampire reading vlog part 2. Super excited about that. I'm going to go ahead and jump to me selecting the winner of my giveaway. Here we go. All right, let's give this a go. Oh, that's fun. Oh, wait. Okay. Woo! Congratulations! Oh, yeah! I'll be in contact. And that concludes my first ever journey through a reading vlog. I hope you guys had fun watching this video and part 1 of this video. I certainly had so much fun making them. It was definitely a learning experience because I just had no idea how to make a vlog, but I feel like it went pretty well. Let me know in the comments what you thought. If you have any tips, if you are a vlogger, I would love some feedback. I would love some constructive criticism, and I want this to be just like a really great viewing experience for you guys as much as I am enjoying making them as well. But thank you so much for watching. I loved this. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Stick around. I'm having fun. I hope you're having fun. I post videos every Tuesday and Friday and occasionally on Saturdays as well, and I cannot wait to see you in the next video. Bye! I never want to read a vampire book again. Yeah, that's disgusting.